All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets here for this Sunday 3-game slate. Let's go on and get into it. And so starting with the earlier game, we got the Buffalo Bills versus the Denver Broncos. What we're going to see here is that the Bills are going to be favored by 8.5 points, and it's a relatively high scoring game with the game total starting to get up closer to about 48 total points. Now, in this game, I think that is definitely noteworthy, the game total, but also the fact that the Broncos are 8.5 point dogs. That should lead to a more pass-heavy script here for the Denver Broncos. And if you look at kind of the Buffalo Bills defense over the past 4 weeks, the positions that we've been wanting to target with them has been tight end and receiver. And so with that, we should be able to get some decent prop bets there. And I think it's worth starting out here, guys. In this game right away, we are getting several pretty good prop bets here for the Buffalo Bills and the Denver Broncos here as well. So let's jump into that. We'll jump into the NFL tab, do a little bit more of a deep dive. And so the top prop bet is actually looking at Dawson Knox to get over his fantasy score, which is kind of an interesting one. We can see the average sportsbook line would have it closer to 3.5. So not a crazy edge, but that could be the difference between reception really there. The projection data also has it closer to 3.87, and so the PrizePicks line being at 2.5, we are seemingly getting it's a small edge, but it's a big edge given how low of a line it is. And this is going to be the nice part about this Sunday slate is we are getting a lot of bets that we would consider like good bets that we would want to be going out of our way to target. Now, if we take out that Jets game because that game was a blowout. Now, again, this one could end up being a blowout, but that game against the Jets was, it was over pretty quickly. So they just really didn't need any tight end production. And then Dawson Knox did sit out in the last game in week 18. So kind of looking at the game log, I don't exactly like doing this, but if we just like skip over that Jets game, we got the Patriots, Detroit, the Rams, and then San Francisco. He's been able to get that over 3 out of the past 4 games. But if we look at kind of the rest of the lines that we were getting here, guys, the reception total is closer to like 1.5 favoring the under, or just heavily favored to get over 1 point, or favoring him to get over a reception, or for him to get a reception, sorry. So you kind of combine that and you can see why the data would be favoring the over of 2.5 for his fantasy score. It's basically a bet on him getting 2 receptions in this game. So not a terrible prop bet, but also not one that I feel like is a lock and load bet. But at the same time, it's nice and refreshing that we are getting good bets. Yesterday, or the Saturday slate, we had one good bet. Again, a good bet would be a bet that has over 54% likely to hit, and that bet hit. So it's nice to get these good bets. And so let's jump on into another good bet that we currently have here for the Buffalo Bills. Amari Cooper. I should say that the Buffalo Bills passing game, really, the Buffalo Bills offense is more difficult to kind of predict. And Amari Cooper is certainly a part of that kind of confusion. Because if you think about it, you got Keon Coleman, who has been playing pretty well. You got Khalil Shakir, who they haven't exactly needed over the past 2 weeks as well. And has that led to Amari Cooper maybe establishing himself a little bit more in this role? Dalton Kincaid has been back and fully healthy for quite some time. And so it does kind of feel, and even if we go into the running game, actually, guys, like Ray Davis has looked good. Ty Johnson's been involved. And obviously James Cook, we're going to trust as a starter. But they've all been pretty darn productive. But at the same time, Amari Cooper, I'm kind of fine betting on him to have a good game. Like, he has looked good, I would say. Not his old self, not last year's self, but good enough. And 5 for a fantasy score is pretty low. The concern with loading up on a little bit too many of these passing props here is that maybe the game does get out of hand. Again, they're 8.5 point favorites. Maybe that game spread actually ends up being a little bit higher, and then maybe we're not liking these prop bets as well. But, I'm fine with it. The data likes it a decent amount. I think we can get there. And another one I think is worth calling out as well, Ray Davis for under his fantasy score. Now, this is where I'm like, all right, do we really need to do this? It is the playoffs. I typically expect kind of the studs to play a little bit more. And so someone like Ray Davis, I do think would be a candidate to see less snaps. And he really hasn't been the pass catching back out of this offense. But again, if it's a blowout, then I would see more getting the over here, because they'd be fine, I think, giving him a lot of carries in a blowout. Why not? So that's kind of the tough part here. And this isn't like a bet that we exactly need to go out of our way to target. It's 53.9% likely for the under to hit, but it's still a seemingly decent bet that's popping up there. And then just looking at it, guys, I want to show you guys some of the rest of the bets that we are getting here. If you guys want to roll with any of these, by all means, go for it. But those are clearly the bets where we are getting decent edges on. Can't call out Josh Allen with his passing yards, prop line difference. PrizePicks certainly has it higher than Underdog and the average sportsbook line. So maybe you guys see something there. Nothing too crazy there. Let's jump into the Denver Broncos. And so jumping into the Denver Broncos, we are getting another good bet on paper here. A bet that I don't know if I really like, though. Okay, that's going to be Javonte Williams for over his fantasy score of 5.5. The projection data likes it basically right on line with the average sportsbook line. I'm curious to see if we get the underdog lines for this, just to be able to compare it even further against that to see if we are truly getting an edge on PrizePicks, or maybe the average sportsbook lines are maybe a little bit too off. But let's take a deeper dive at this one. So let's take a peek at all the lines that we're getting here for Javonte Williams, guys. We see his receiving line is set about 16.5. We see his rush line is set about 11.5. So let's just go with 2.7 points right there. We see he's pretty likely to get 2 receptions, right? That's why it's being presented as a goblin. So right there, he's already at 4.7 points. So his fantasy score being at 5.5, it's really not accounting for really anything else too much. Now, I really don't think he's a candidate to score a touchdown. I mean, he is obviously, but like to me, I think the goal line back, the short yards back has been more Audric Estime. It seems like Sean Payton wants that to be the case. And so I don't know how much touchdown equity Javonte Williams has, but I do think he still holds some production here in the passing game. He can get those receptions there. So if he does end up getting 3 receptions, then yeah, that fantasy score line does seem to be pretty low. Now, my issue with Javonte Williams is that I don't think he's good. Like, he just hasn't looked good. He's had like 1 good game, and that was on like Thursday night. His 2 good games have been on Thursday nights. I think Jaleel McLaughlin has clearly been the best back here. So this is one of those bets that I make, like one eye closed, like it's kind of ugly. And you're just like, all right, whatever. That's kind of how I feel about this bet. And then from there, guys, we're really not getting too many great bets here for Denver. I do think it's worth calling out, though. Let's just like touch on some other bets here. So like Jaleel McLaughlin, I do think he's like the more talented running back here. But again, in a game that's supposed to be, maybe a blowout, again, 8.5 points. Do we exactly need to get there with Jaleel? Probably not. That probably feels a little bit too forced. Let's talk about Devon Valet here as well. So his reception line is at 2.5. Does feel like a little bit of a guessing game. But again, if they are playing from behind, they should be running out a lot more 3 receiver sets. We should be seeing a decent amount of him and Marvin Mims. Mims has not been playing as many snaps as his production would suggest. It is strange there. He probably will continue to see more snaps, but I think if I were trying to peg someone where we could probably get an edge based off of playing time, being able to project playing time, I think Devon Valet would be that guy. I don't really like, obviously the data doesn't like him for over 2.5 receptions here. Okay, that's not a good bet on PrizePicks or Underdog, but I think it could be a good plus bet on other sites that, do that rather than what PrizePicks does, where you're not getting rewarded for making a bet like that. And while we're at it here as well, Cortland Sutton, guys, on Pick 6, the DraftKings prop site that they have there, you can actually bet his under 5.5 receptions. That's still a line that's currently available. I'm calling that out here because we can see the lower is definitely the favorite here for Cortland Sutton. Now, again, in a game where they're playing from behind, I could actually see getting to his over 5.5 receptions. The targets have been there for Cortland Sutton to get over 5.5 receptions, but it just hasn't come to fruition for him to get to 6 receptions. That just hasn't been something that's happened for him. At the same time, I would agree with the line at being at 5.5. I don't know how big of an edge there is, but he's been really good. It really just depends on Bo Nix. Are we going to get Bo Nix looking like Justin Herbert? I think that's a possibility in his first start in a playoff game as a rookie. A little bit nervous there, especially against the Buffalo Bills, who a lot of people are thinking are going to be a playoff team or a Super Bowl team. Apologies. So yeah, it's a little bit tough. Obviously 8.5 points though. All right, guys, so let's go ahead now and jump on into the next game. We got the Eagles versus the Packers. The Eagles are going to be 5-point favorites in this game, and it is a kind of a okay scoring game, 45.5 points. So not a terribly high scoring game, but not a terribly low scoring game as well. So nothing too much of a takeaway game script wise here with this. It is a game where I could see 2 scenarios happening where the Packers blow out the Eagles, but also I could see them also getting blown out. Like the Packers have had a weird few games here where their games over the past 3 weeks, so if you want to round up the past month, haven't really mattered for them. They kind of knew they were locked into the 7th or 6th seed. And at that point, it's it's tough to have that motivation. And with that, they have made some sloppy mistakes, especially the last 2 weeks. It's pretty bad. You would expect them to get this cleaned up. This is exactly what I said the same time last year here, guys. The exact same thing, carbon copy. The momentum's a little bit different, but if the Packers play a clean game, that wouldn't be shocking to see them blow out the Eagles. Now, is that likely? Probably not. They haven't done that really all season. The Eagles are also getting back Jalen Hurts, which is going to be a good thing for their offense. It obviously makes them a little bit more dynamic as an offense. Now, for me, guys, one of my favorite bets on the day is actually looking at Dontavian Wicks to get over 3.5 receptions. Unfortunately for the Green Bay Packers, they are going to be without Christian Watson in this game, who had another leg injury. Really feel bad for him there. But with that, we are going to see Dontavian Wicks really continue to step up. And he has been someone that has stepped up recently. Okay, Romeo Doubs was out last week. We saw Christian Watson being banged up for a few weeks there, to the point where we have seen Dontavian Wicks be in this similar type of role. And this is going to be a bet that, again, I probably like a little bit more on traditional sportsbook bets, only a 51% likely to hit, but I do think it's a spot where we could get to. Now, he has had a few drops as well as all the other receivers for the Packers, but he's looked good the last 2 weeks. It really had felt like he had turned a page over the last 2 weeks. That's something I noticed. 4 receptions against Minnesota, 5 against Chicago. They need him too. They definitely need him. Now, some people are probably going to be referencing the game that the Green Bay Packers had against Philly in week 1, and really the game that Jaden Reed had in that game where he just went bonkers. It's not a bad thing, don't get me wrong. The Eagles defense has gotten much better since that point. The Packers defense, for that matter, as well, has gotten much better since that point. I mean, we can't take anything away from that game, guys. It was just such a terrible field. Both teams were slipping and sliding all over the place. They shouldn't have been playing on that field. So, don't really look at that game. I really don't think it's that worthwhile. That being said, though, he did have a good game in that game, and he just needs to have a good game here. He's had some struggles, a lot of drops. I don't really know what's going on, but if they're gonna play well in this game, he needs to go off. I don't really want to bet on that for him per se. It just wouldn't be shocking to see him have a massive game. I think he's a better DFS option if you guys play daily fantasy sports on DraftKings or FanDuel. I could see getting there. The Romeo Doubs, we are seeing his reception line is bumped up to 4, which I would say is correct. He did not play last week against Chicago, but is he going to be the receiver number 1 here? Might be forced into it. So again, I think the best bet that we are getting here with the Packers receivers, with the 3 that we know are going to be on the field, is Dontavian Wicks. I'd rather get there. Now, one player I was surprised at his snap counts, even last week, was actually Tucker Kraft, guys. Tucker Kraft has been a player I've been really hyping up the whole season, as you guys hopefully know. Been very solid for us. Now, he is someone that I think it's a tell that he played that many snaps last week, where the Packers were basically playing a lot of their backups for the most part, especially in the second half. But they just want to continue to get him snaps. I thought Luke Musgrave would be a candidate to get more snaps last week. That did not happen. And so I'm looking at some of the lines that we're getting for Tucker Kraft. I probably want to get to some of them. Now, again, all the data points that we are getting here for him, we're either getting it as a goblin for him to get over 2.5 receptions, which I don't mind, or we can see some of the lines that we're getting here are basically correct per Vegas data. So again, I think if we're betting on him, it's going to be more of the traditional sportsbook bets rather than anything else. And then let's zoom out here, guys. What we're going to notice here for the Packers as well is that one of the best bets, and I don't really love it, is actually looking at Josh Jacobs to not score a touchdown. Josh Jacobs has been on a really strong touchdown streak lately, and I would assume that this mostly has to do with that. He's due to have a regression game in terms of his touchdowns. He gets a tough matchup here against Philly as well. Maybe they are 5-point dogs, maybe a game script that presents more of a passing script. Jordan Love has a little bit of a hand, wrist injury, maybe elbow injury going on. I would think that Josh Jacobs would get fed the ball a ton in this game. So I don't love that. I don't love that's popping up as a good bet, but I did want to call that out to you guys because it is considered a good bet right now. And then for Jordan Love, I will say some of the lines that we're getting for him, I don't know, to me they seem low, especially considering some of the average sportsbook lines that we're getting. So we see here, guys, his average sportsbook line is at 213.5 or so. I don't mind that. He's also due for a good game. And I feel like he kind of knows that as well. Now, we don't know how injured he is. That's the concern there. And logically speaking, we probably just shouldn't be betting on him at all. But those lines are pretty low for him. They feel almost egregiously low, but maybe that's just because he is more banged up than maybe they are telling the public. And just based off of kind of my Twitter feed, being a Packers fan, it kind of feels like he's a little bit more banged up than maybe what's been presented mostly to the public. So a little bit worried about that. But if he's not, decent edges there. Let's go ahead and jump on into Philly, guys. Philly, to me, most of the data that we're getting on them is correct. Now, we are seeing Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown is almost at 54% likely to hit. I don't hate that. It's kind of, you're trying to get lucky, though, with maybe Saquon Barkley getting to the 2 or 1 yard line one, which has happened a lot, or maybe DPI. I don't exactly love doing that, but you could get there. And real quickly, guys, I want to jump back into the Buffalo game because I'm seeing this tackles and assists prop up here for Philly. And I remembered we have a good prop bet on Underdog as well. So, guys, if you noticed throughout this video, I haven't really been showing Underdog too much because, well, we're just all the good bets that we're getting on Underdog are some of the good bets that we were getting on PrizePicks. So, Josh Jacobs under anytime touchdowns, Jalen Hurts over anytime touchdowns. But the one I wanted to call out to you guys for Buffalo is Ed Oliver to get over 0.5 assists. That's a good bet there as well. So apologies. Let's jump back into the Eagles. And so, yeah, guys, I don't know if I want to go in on the bets that we are getting here for the Eagles. Packers defense has been, I think, a lot better than people really realize. Last week, the Packers really dominated on defense. It was their special teams that truly let them down. I mean, they crushed the Bears. It's a weird game. It feels weird. They crushed the Bears. It's the Bears, who really cares, right? But the point is, the defense has been pretty darn good lately. It's the offense putting them in poor situations, or the special teams really kind of failing them. And so I'm looking at the bets that we're getting for the Eagles, and we're seeing Devonta Smith is bumped up. I just don't really want to get there. This actually could end up being, I don't think it will, could end up being more of a defensive struggle, especially than it was week one. Now, the biggest weakness that we know in the Packers defense is giving up production to opposing running backs in the passing game. This is something that, did we nail last week? I'll pull that up. I'm still tilted about this, guys. F the Bears coaching staff. So this was the underdog slip that I gave you guys last week. 7 for 8 on the day. Really good stuff. It felt like we were getting some really good edges last week. The one that missed was DeAndre Swift over 2.5 receptions, which I'm like, yeah, the Packers give up a lot of receptions to the running backs. Let's attack that. And guess what the Chicago Bears decide to do with that information? Yeah, let's give Roschon Johnson 5 freaking targets and 5 receptions instead of giving it to your dynamic playmaker out of the backfield, DeAndre Swift. That, just like what, that little stuff like that's tilting. Being in the right spot, and then you just decided to give it to someone, that was tilting. Anyways, that's the third time, guys, that's happened over the past month and a half, where we've gotten burned by coaches being annoying. The other one that sticks out is the Nick Chubb touchdown, where they gave him, I think it was 4 straight carries on the 2-yard line, and on 4th down he finally gets it. I know it was at least 3, and that cost us 8 for 8. Tilting, very tilting there. But hopefully you guys mixed and matched your way to a really good week last week on Underdog. But the point I'm trying to make is, it really would not be shocking to see them go to Saquon a little bit more. Now, they haven't really needed to use him in the passing game, and they have. Kenneth Gainwell's been used a little bit there as well. That could end up happening, but I think there's a good chance that he does get to 2 receptions. I think this is a good bet. I do like it. Personally, I think this is a good bet. Especially on PrizePicks, where maybe you're trying to extend I think we have 4 good bets on PrizePicks right now, over 54% likely to hit, and you want to extend it, slip into 5, a flex bet, I'd be fine with this one, because I think it has a good chance to be a push, but also I think it has a good chance to hit. And then, guys, real quickly, let's jump into the last game on Sunday. That's going to be Washington versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is going to be 3-point favorites in this game, and this game is projected to be one of the highest scoring games. Okay, the Bucs have been pretty poor defensively against the pass. One of the defenses that you've been wanting to target. Now, they've been a little bit better over the past 4 weeks, for what that's worth, but we know that's still going to be their weakness. And so we probably want to be attacking the Washington pass catchers, and really not the run game. The Bucs run game has been excellent. So maybe someone like Austin Eckler actually gets a little bit more work in the passing game. I think that's noteworthy. Now, guys, I've been doing more of a deep dive no, never mind. I might do a separate video for this, but let's still talk about this and do the deep dive here as well. Let's jump into the Bucs instead then. And so just sorting it by the best bets that we are currently getting right now, guys, Sterling Shepard, will he play? This is another spot where Sterling Shepard's back. Jalen McMillan's been balling out. I expect Jalen McMillan to be the receiver number 2 here, and I actually don't mind Jalen McMillan, but Sterling Shepard could certainly get into that mix. Obviously, has that rapport there with Baker Mayfield. For him to get over 5.5 for a fantasy score, I don't hate that. If that continues, that role kind of continues, I think he'd be able to get that over, especially in a game that's projected to be this high scoring, right? That's the big caveat, is that it is projected to be a high scoring game. So we look at his 2.5 receptions, about 2.5 points receiving as well. You add that up, that's 5 right there. Again, not really factoring in too much of touchdown equity in there. So a little bit of an edge. Will we get Mike Evans to 6 receptions? Probably. I'm okay with that. Kate on, we are seeing a decent prop line difference with how Underdog and PrizePicks are valuing him. So PrizePicks would have him set at 7.5, Underdog at 9 with their scoring. Obviously, you have to adjust that full point PPR instead of half. Maybe a little bit of middle there. That's a pretty crazy prop line difference. And so just to call out here again, guys, this Kate on line is at 6.8 on Underdog. So it's not exactly the same line as PrizePicks at 7.5, but it's nearly just as much as the PrizePicks line. And for a guy to be at 3 receptions, and for us to see that really should not be happening. And so a little bit of an edge there if you guys like his over 7.5 on PrizePicks. And then I do want to jump into Bucky Irvin, just because I love Bucky Irvin, guys. I'm doing this video and Ladd McConkey just broke a massive touchdown, and I'm kind of just naturally thinking about like fantasy football round 1 next year. I'm like, McConkey, you could argue, could be a round 1 receiver. I doubt he will be. Like that just won't happen. It would probably be 3rd round. Bucky Irving, on the other hand, could be a 1st round pick. Like that's where my brain's at with a lot of the stuff. Like kind of thinking about like maybe best balls and whatnot. I don't know. I think he could be. Bucky Irving just looks so good, right, guys? Like I'm looking at the lines that we're getting for him. Like fantasy score we won't want to do. Like that's a pretty high one, I would say. But like him to get 3 receptions, I could see him doing that in this game where, again, it's a high scoring game. Like I'd be fine with that. At the same time, you could do his receiving yards, rush. Like it just feels like it's going to be a Bucky Irving type game. And now that I say that, man, could we see? I mean, we just saw Justin Herbert go full Justin Herbert, which ruined my night. Thank you, Justin Herbert. Could we see the old Baker? Like we saw Sam Darnold last week, kind of fall back into old Sam Darnold. Baker has been new Baker, if you will, rookie year Baker. Could we see him like struggle in this game? I doubt it, but I guess that's in the field of play now. But yeah, I mean, for the Bucs, I don't think we're getting that many big edges for them. I do think, however, we are getting some for Washington, but Washington is a little bit more difficult. So Dynamic Brown, I do think he'll step up into the receiver number 2 role again, but Olamide Zaccheaus has been someone that has been impressive. Obviously, really came through for us 2 weeks ago, and it just wouldn't be surprising to see that role stay there for him. And if you look at the data, Zaccheaus here is at 8.5 for his fantasy score, whereas Brown is at 5.5. In terms of betting, though, maybe it's more of a 50-50 split. We look at the game log here for Brown as well. We know he missed that game or 2 games in there against Dallas, 5.4 there. Like, oh well, right? Against Dallas, who cares? Shouldn't say that, who cares? But right there. And again, highest scoring game, you're going against Tampa, who gives up a ton of production to opposing receivers. Even if he's the receiver number 3 here, this line might be a little bit too low. So I do agree here with the data saying it. All right, this line is a 53.5% likely to hit to bet the over. I'm okay with that. I do agree with that. I think that's a solid bet. If you guys are looking for bets for the Sunday Night Football game, I think this would be one that we could go out of our way to target. So from there, guys, I want to talk about a bet that I like, actually, and that's going to be looking at Austin Ekeler to get over 2.5 receptions. Okay, so this defense has been very solid against stopping opposing running backs, specifically in the running game and also in the passing game for what it's worth. But we have seen Brian Robinson Jr. just really not play all too well recently, and so Austin Ekeler, we know he's coming back from injury, played against Dallas, 2 receptions in that game. He's an older back. He needs to go out and play well, and I think he will. I phrase that kind of weird. Not need, but like if Washington needs him to, have a bigger role in this game, then it'll happen. Like they're not worried about him. And I don't think he'll really care about, like, it's the playoffs, right? He's an older back. Who cares if you give him a ton of work? And so given the game script here, again, where we are seeing Tampa Bay favored by 3, highest scoring game, to me, it promotes more of a pass-heavy script. And Ekeler has been impressive earlier on in the season. I don't think he looked bad last week. I thought he looked normal last week, and that was a big takeaway for me. It's all right. We probably want to be on Austin Ekeler, and now he has a matchup against Tampa Bay where you're not going to be the rush of football most likely, right? Austin Ekeler out of the backfield catching passes, to me, makes a decent amount of sense. Now, guys, I do want to call out another prop line difference that we have just on the slate as well for Josh Allen in terms of his fantasy score. So Underdog has it at 24, so a little bit higher there. So if you think Josh Allen maybe doesn't score as many touchdowns, bet is under, right? On Underdog. But if you guys are looking to bet is over, you'd want to do that on PrizePicks. So worth calling that out there. Already called that out with Kate Otten. We are seeing that here with Dontavian Wicks, Terry McLaurin. We are getting some little edges there with a lot of these guys. So it is worth kind of making sure, double checking here before you place those bets. But with that, guys, let's go ahead and get into the bet of the day here for this slate. All right, guys. So for Underdog, we are currently getting this good EV bet here with Ed Oliver to get an assist. Interesting bet, right? And then Austin Ekeler, I do like personally to get over 2.5 receptions. So we're going to be rolling with that. Now, I did mention we have a lot of good bets on the slates, more specifically for PrizePicks. So you guys will see that reflected here in the PrizePicks bet slip. And I just realized for Underdog, if you guys want to make that a 3-slip bet, Dontavian Wicks for over his 3.5 receptions, I don't think it's a bad option there as well. Now, looking at the PrizePicks slip, I am just going with the 4 good bets that we currently have. But just remember, guys, this is something that is always updating throughout the day, and it's based off of the average sportsbook data that's coming in. That could be changing, so just make sure you're making the best bets currently at that point. And you can do that by visiting 9to5sports.com. Get access to all the data. On the 9to5 website, you guys can get access to the new updated NBA cheat sheet, which gives you guys a detailed breakdown of all the best prop bets that we have. Also gives you access to all the fantasy golf tools as well, which is currently going on here, guys. We're kind of at the start of the season, so kind of fun stuff there. But you guys will get access to all the tools that are available on the 9to5 website. Make sure to check that out, guys. That's going to do it for today's video, guys. Appreciate you being here. Make sure to give a like to the channel. That'll do it, though. Subscribe if you guys can as well. That does help out a lot. All right, thanks for watching, guys. If you guys have a bet that you guys like, make sure to comment there. Or if you guys feel like one of the line or bets I called out maybe isn't a good bet, by all means, let me know. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure it's a good comment, though. All right, that's all, guys. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.